So I just also want to mention we're recording tonight, and I've just started recording. So from here on out, everything will be preserved and recorded. And with that, I'll hand things over to Adam.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming out too. Going to talk about one of my favorite topics tonight, amphibian migrations and road crossings. And we're going to get some training in there so you can ID, be safe, and you know, experience some of one of the coolest things you can see in the Northeast, in my opinion. So a little bit about me before we keep going. I graduated from April Park High School in 2007. I went on to RIT to get my bachelor's in science and environmental science. I then worked for several years. I did outdoor education on the West Coast, and I also did some fisheries work in the Bering Sea and all along the West Coast. And I've also worked pretty extensively in the Hudson Valley, specifically on the Hudson River, and also a bit in Western New York. Where I got my master's in biology on those salamanders there that are in the bottom right-hand corner. They can also be found in the Hudson Valley. They're called mud puppies, but we're not going to be talking about those kinds of salamanders today. So I'd like you guys to use the chat, enter in the chat where you're tuning in from and maybe your favorite amphibian. I'll give you guys a few seconds to do that. Nice. Thanks, Dan. A lot of them out there. Awesome, Chelsea. Oh, hey, Sophie. Green frogs, nice. Cocoa Beach. I'm also in Florida. Awesome. Troy, nice. Spotted salamanders. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and back to New York. Steventown. Screenbush frogs. Awesome. Got a lot of people from all over. Gotcha. Yeah, I hope to be too. So awesome. Yeah, we got a lot of people from a lot of different places. Another Florida. American toads. Yeah, so just in the chat box, we're seeing a lot of biodiversity already being represented. Jeffersons, spring peepers, redbacks, spotteds, axolotl, nice. Kind of like a mud puppy. Awesome. So a little overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So we're going to do the who, the what, the why, the when, where, and how. And we'll see this come up throughout the slides. So what is an amphibian? Got some pictures of amphibians here. So here's a spotted salamander, which was found next to a Jefferson. This was found in town of Sand Lake last year. This is another one, spring peeper. Going to be found very common on the roads. American toad, and then the red eft. And there's going to be a lot more. We'll talk about some more in the presentation moving forward. But an amphibian, they have aquatic, terrestrial, and semi-aquatic life stages. So they're born in the water as something that might be a tadpole or a larval salamander, and then they grow and they emerge onto the terrestrial environment and live in the forests or near the water, and then they return back and forth to the water to lay their eggs. They're ectothermic, which means They get energy from like the sun or the outside environment. Like I said, they lay eggs, and they have very porous skin, so they're very sensitive to environmental changes or environmental pollutants. So here's the life cycle of a classic amphibian. This in particular is a spotted salamander, which are considered mole salamanders. So in that top left-hand corner, which I can highlight here with the spotlight, it's appropriate. So one is the adult spotted salamander, and that guy is mostly terrestrial, or girl. And as they move, or as they get old, they move down into the vernal pools to mate and reproduce, where they also lay their eggs. Gotta get off that. Sorry about that. And then they grow in the vernal pools until they start to lose water, and will eventually emerge onto land and move into the forest as juveniles, and then to grow into adults. So they use the terrestrial environment and the aquatic, and then throughout the rest of their life, they're visiting the aquatic and terrestrial environments. During late March, during the first big rain events, lots of these types of salamanders will move from those upland environments to vernal pools. I've been mentioning vernal pools, and these are just some pictures of what a vernal pool in the area may look like. So a vernal pool is a depression in the land that catches rain or snow melt. And in a forest, it might look like this, where there's lots of leafy material on the bottom. And then eventually in the summer, this will dry up. And one of the most important parts about these vernal pools, especially related to amphibians, is that there aren't fish in them. So fish will eat amphibians, and these amphibians are trying to get to areas where they can't be eaten by fish. And this last picture that just came up, that might be something in more of like a disturbed area, like a farmland. Amphibians will absolutely use these too. So yeah, we're talking about these animals moving from this upland forest to the vernal pools, but unfortunately we've built roads in between them, those two habitats, in a lot of areas. And when there's roads, there's going to be road mortality. So why should we care that these amphibians are getting hit on roads? Biodiversity in ecological systems means resilience. So if there's a lot of different types of salamanders, not that we want to lose any types of salamanders, but if something happens in climate,
Adam, you seem to be frozen, or you were frozen there for a minute. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can't hear him.
Yes, he froze for me too. We'll give him a second. Maybe he just had his connection go out for a moment.
Same here.
Okay.
Is he outside?
I'm not sure, but I think if we give him a second, he'll probably try to reconnect.
Okay.
In the meantime, I was just going to say, I almost put something in the chat. I think vernal pools are so cool. The fact that, you know, there are these little sort of secret ponds hidden in woodlands, and they're only there part of the year. They just seem really neat and mysterious to me. I've always found them kind of fascinating. You know, you can be walking along in the woods and just sort of find one, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of magic.
I wanted to ask, did he say that there were fish in them or there weren't fish in them?
I am not sure about that.
Because he was talking about how they wanted to find a pool where there wasn't fish because they didn't.
There are not fish in vernal pools.
Yes, I think that's
Okay,
right.
good. Thank you.
I can add.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm back.
Oh, here's Adam. Okay. We
Lost
figured you'd be
connection
right
there.
back.
Sorry about
No worries.
that.
Okay, thanks.
Were there questions about vernal pools?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had asked, but we got it straightened around. I didn't know if there were fish in vernal pools, but Tracy popped up and said, no, no fish in vernal pools.
Yep, no fish. Get back to it. Second. Share. All right, so did we get to did you guys hear me when I was talking about bioindicators?
Nope.
Where did I lose you?
I think we got lost right when you first switched onto this slide. We saw the biodiversity text, but didn't hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so biodiversity is resilience, and you know, we never want to like lose any species caused by humans, but species do move in and out of, you know, being able to survive in different areas. And if you have a lot of biodiversity, if you lose some kind of animal, there's probably another similar animal that can take its place. And for a lot of amphibians, especially in particular with humans, they do a lot of pest control. So on this figure here to the left, am I frozen? Sorry, I just got a text message.
Nope, you're
Not
good.
How am I
now.
doing?
You're okay.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yep, you seem fine.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, so salamanders in here, they do a lot of eating, but they also get eaten a lot. So they're both important in controlling some of the animals below them, but also feeding some of the animals above them in the food chain. And as part of that, they move nutrients. So like I said, they're moving from the terrestrial to the aquatic and then back up to the terrestrial. So they move those nutrients from the terrestrial environment to the aquatic and then vice versa. And they're also bioindicators, or canary in the coal mine is a phrase that's used to describe a bioindicator. They're very sensitive to pollutants and changes in their environment. So, and there are several studies that show that you can use amphibians as an indicator of forest health, which is pretty cool. So that's why we should care about these amphibians. Keep yellow spotted salamander. But unfortunately, amphibian numbers around the world are going down. And that is because of changes in water quality. Big thing is habitat loss, especially for vernal pools, because vernal pools aren't really protected unless they're in unless it's a huge vernal pool, they're not protected by the state. So we're losing a lot of vernal pools, basically. Fungal diseases that have been moved around, and then climate change, and what we're here to talk about tonight, which is roads. So what you're seeing here is a figure of the Hudson Valley. This is from the New York State DEC Amphibian Migration and Road Crossing Monitoring Project. But we're specifically talking about this area, and this is showing species richness, so the number of species. And there's a lot of diversity in these areas where we really haven't done a lot of sampling. So the potential for seeing a lot of different animals in this, especially in the Rensselaer area, and really throughout the Hudson Valley and all of Appalachia, because that area has the greatest amount of diversity of amphibians in the world. You have a really good chance of seeing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of different stuff, a lot of biodiversity. So how can we help? We can find new crossings, and that's really kind of the goal of the amphibian migration and road crossing by the DEC. You can document them, and that's how we can actually start working on conservation of these areas. And then you can actually physically help these amphibians cross the road, so you get to actually get your hands on one, which is always my favorite. But the first thing we got to talk about is safety. So safety is huge because you're going to be out there at night. So a way to be easily seen when you're on a road at night. Flashlights, headlamps, and hopefully we can get some signage at some of these spots that we are going to talk about in a little bit. And then another thing is you might want to find a straight section of road so that cars can see you. We're not just talking about our safety, we also want to consider the amphibian safety. So what before you pick them up, especially nowadays with COVID, everybody's also always using lotions and different stuff on their hands. We want to rinse our hands off so we're not giving them anything to take in through their skin, which could potentially hurt them. So you could do this through actually rinsing your water off or your hands off in the water at the vernal pool, or grab some dirt and rub your hands in it, and yeah, do that before handling any amphibians. But the biggest thing is definitely your safety. Bring those lights, wear your high visibility colors, and yeah, use your flashers. A little more background on the DEC project. The Hudson River Estuary Program started the amphibian monitoring back in 2009. They've helped save thousands, if not tens of thousands, well, likely tens of thousands of amphibians move across the roads. Another thing I haven't really mentioned, but when they migrate, there are things called big nights, which you get hundreds or even thousands in a night. They haven't really captured one of those nights in the Hudson Valley yet, but just in 2018, 2,116 live amphibians were counted, and 1,700 were moved across roads. And a teacher, Vicky Boulay, with the Averill Park High School, found, I believe it was 62 spotted salamanders in just under an hour on a road, again, that had never been monitored or anything. So there's a lot of potential to find some really cool stuff. Something else that I wanted to point out here is they monitor the number of dead amphibians. So this helps with conservation questions like, all right, what areas are they actually in danger, or which areas are having highest species richness and the highest
Adam, it looks like you've frozen again.
road maintenance project.
I think you're back now.
Okay.
Yep, seems okay. Thanks.
All right. Did
We
you guys
just like
get the
30 seconds.
okay. So yeah, I just wanted to mention this. Live and dead amphibians are being monitored. So just because you're seeing dead amphibians, you should be marking those down as well. And again, those can help out with conservation of different areas and different species. So citizen science project, I want to just mention a few other citizen science projects. You can listen for frog calls, which is pretty cool. They have training for that online. You can monitor monarchs. The DEC has a program for this as well. You can also tag them, which is cool. Bluebird nest monitoring, they do this in the Albany area at 5 Rivers. And then for this is Day in the Life of the Hudson River, another thing run by the DEC. And wave monitoring is suckboard water quality assessments using macroinvertebrates. And then ours here is amphibian migrations and road crossings. So this is a map, or this is New York State's DEC Wetland Mapper. You can go online if you just Google that, Wetland Mapper NYS DEC. You can get to this page, and I actually have this screenshot here because I'll put the spotlight on it. The areas that we're looking to conserve are right over here, which is in a wetland. And then there's a couple areas over here that have been monitored as well, also near all of these wetlands. Parker Road, Shaver Road, Higgins Road, all of them are right near wetlands. So if you're trying to find a spot that's close to you, use the DEC Wetland Mapper and yeah, go try to find a new spot. So yeah, we want to find hotspots, and hotspots are just areas where there are large number of animals and large species diversity. Something to look for if you're looking on Google Maps are forested areas, fragmented by roads. So a road going through a nice forested area on both sides. You can also drive around and listen for frogs. That's a big indicator that there are amphibians there if you can hear them. You can also look for amphibian roadkill. Again, a dead giveaway. Couldn't help myself. You also want to look for, especially when you're first starting and there's not a lot known about amphibian crossings and stuff. Look for roads that have speed limits that are pretty low, like under 40 miles an hour. That's mostly for your safety. And then again, straight roads are good so people can see you, and also your headlights go a lot farther. And when you're driving around, drive slow and keep your flashers on so cars coming up behind you can see. So this is kind of like what it might look like when you're driving down the road after a rain in the spring. And what you're seeing here is actually mostly worms, but there are a few amphibians in here too. And you're going to see a lot of worms, but amphibians like worms, and where worms are crossing, amphibians are most likely crossing as well. Right here is a little frog, and I think there's a little salamander right here. But the rest of these are worms. So drive slow and get out often and check it out, because some of these salamanders are going to be very small and just look like worms. So, you know, just when you're driving around, get out and check pretty often. All right. And so Parker, Shaver, and Higgins roads in the town of Sand Lake and West Sand Lake, these have been monitored for several years. There's volunteers that live on the road that have been going out. And this is data that they collected over 1 year. So in 1 year, their total amphibians found, I think they went out 8 times. And they found 804 total amphibians. Of those, I guess 700 and something were alive, 675. So these areas have like pretty low total car numbers too. You can see the cars per hour, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5. All of this is data that you guys should be collecting as you're out there on the roads. But we'll talk more about this in a little bit. Algonquin Beach Road is another spot that I've been monitoring and seen amphibians at since I was a little kid. And there's a pretty good amount of diversity here. And it's pretty consistent crossings. It might not be huge crossings some nights, but there are some nights that we can get over, 20 or 30 amphibians an hour. And this is just a shot from Records Lake and town Sand Lake Beach. It's just north of that. All right, so let's talk about some species you might find. So here's the yellow spotted salamander. This is probably one of the most common ones that is found. They're one of the bigger and more charismatic ones. Eastern red F. Got a lot of people that said they love these little guys. They're seen pretty easily and often as well. And if you look in the vernal pools, you can actually find adults, and not even just vernal pools. Red F's will be in lakes and ponds, fish as well. Fish don't like them. But yeah, red F's, Jefferson and blue spotted salamander. So this is a hybrid there are 2 different species, but it's pretty hard to distinguish between. So most of them get lumped together into the hybrid. And the way to tell these ones is that they don't have the big yellow spots or white. Just along the side, there's typically some blue spotting. And they're about the same size as a spotted salamander. One rare one that hasn't been found in Rensselaer County yet is the marbled salamander. These guys mostly migrate in the fall, but you can find them in the spring as well. Another rarer one is the red salamander, really cool. Wood frog, one of the most common, if not the most common one. Can tell these guys by the Zorro mask over his eyes. Gray tree frog, these kind of look like spring peepers, but the telltale difference is the yellow underneath the tree frog's leg. So one way to tell them apart. American toad, spring peepers, again, this is one of the most commonly found ones, or amphibians crossing the road. And on their back, they have a X. So you can really identify those by that marking, and their scientific name is crucifer, which refers to the X on their back. Bullfrogs, pretty common to find bullfrogs and green frogs. I'm going to refer you guys to the DEC website for the differences in ID between them. I have all the references and stuff. I'll put them at the end of the presentation and on the Amphibian, Averill Park Amphibian Road Crossing Project Facebook. But if you also are looking actually in the vernal pools, you could easily find some of the salamanders with egg masses. And this one, you can see the yellow spotted here. And then this is one of the egg masses right here. And even though it's covered in algae, a lot of those will likely survive. All right, so data. We've already talked about recording live and dead frogs and salamanders, some species ID. We definitely want to get some environmental data as well. So this is New York State's DEC data collection form. You can find this on their website. You can print this out, and that's a good way to use, or a good thing to use for counting and recording everything before you go and enter it in the online form. But a lot of times this is something that I found in my phone. I'll just use on my smartphone. I'll take notes on what we found, some of the weather conditions, cars, things like that. And I'm actually gonna try and walk you guys through one of those. Here it is. All right. So this is the resource mapper. I'll show you this pretty quick too. So if you click on the link, this is what it'll bring you to. And all you got to do is turn on these state regulated wetlands layer, and then just zoom in on your area. And then they pop up. So I don't want to get too close, but right over here is one of our sites, and then Higgins, Parker, Shaver roads are all over here. And you can easily find those. This is the amphibian migration homepage. Here we go. So here's the data recorder for Survey 123. This is what DEC uses to get your data to them and for them to use it. So when you start, you want to write down your start time. So we're going to be able to calculate effort. So we know how many hours you were out and how many animals per hour. Temperature, all right, 45, and at the end it was 40. Temperature was going down. And then some of the weather conditions and traffic, like I mentioned. weather conditions in the past 24 hours. And all you got to do is click on these. Next. So I'm in Rensselaer County in the town of Sand Lake. Algonquin Beach Road is the example that I'm going to be using. I have surveyed this before, and that area you really only have to survey about 300 feet. So 0.06 miles is what I calculated that to be. And this is new this year. You can actually move this map around so that you can put the exact spot that you are surveying. First time submitting data? No. So this is also, they track the number of volunteers that can be used or that go out every year, and then actual writing the numbers down. So this night I found 6 live spotted, 5 dead spotted, 6 live Jeffersons, 5 dead Jeffersons, etc., etc. Found a lot of 4-toed salamanders, 50 and 70. I didn't think I found any frogs this night. So the next, you're gonna have to look, if you have a compass, it's good to know. This isn't super important because depending on the time of year, whether they're going or coming back from, going to or going back from the vernal pools will definitely change the direction. But how many did I do? 5,000. Nice. And then you can upload photos and you can choose, I chose 3 photos and you can add those in there. And DEC will get back to you or use those in future things. But I'm not going to use that.
Adam, before you go on, we have a question in the chat from Chelsea. Is there a minimum distance or time that we have to survey?
Question. I mean, no. Distance. Yeah, no, because you can you enter the distance in the online form, and yeah, time, and you could really drive around doing it too. So no, just get out there, and even if you find one on the road, like when you're driving and you stop and all right, 1 minute, found 1 spotted salamander. It's just good to know where there are populations. So anytime, any amount, any place is good. All right. So when is this going to be happening? Is there anything else in the chat before I go on?
That's it for now.
All right. All right. So when? If you join the April Park Amphibian Project group on Facebook, I'm going to be posting on days prior to times when I think that it's going to be good to go out and monitor some of these amphibians. But mostly you're looking for nights in the spring around 40 degrees where there has been rainfall in the last few days or that day. Most likely that day, but even days previous, as long as the roads are still wet. Or the leaves are still wet, they'll be migrating. Another thing about this is you can go out in the fall and also find these animals moving, not in the huge numbers that you will in the spring, but it's also cool to go out in the fall when it's maybe not as cold and see these guys and girls. So some projects that I'd like to work with, maybe some high school students or middle school. Taking pictures of them with something of a known size can help us get morphological features, and that's good to monitor over changing or the now changing climate with climate change, because morphology does change with environmental conditions with these amphibians, and kind of taking pictures with this gives us something to look back on if we want to. And if anybody's interested in working on a photo ID project, you can identify a lot of these individuals by their spotting patterns, and not only spotting patterns, but their warts, like you see here in this American toad. So yeah, where we are now is really road monitoring assisted and assisted crossings. We're working with the town of Sand Lake for overnight road closings this year, specifically at the Algonquin Beach Road. And yeah, there's only been a few other states that have done that, and there hasn't been any place in New York that has had a temporary overnight road closure. So hopefully we'll be getting that done this year. And then future, as we look towards after we gather more data and have better information on where these animals are and where they're getting hit most by cars, under road tunnels are also a mitigation technique that have been used in Vermont and New Jersey. And if you give it a Google or YouTube, salamander migrations under Amphibian underpass in Vermont, there's a really cool video of hundreds and hundreds of salamanders walking through this tunnel. So that's really cool. All right, questions, comments, points of dispute. All of these animals were, I believe, well, all of them were definitely photographed in the Hudson Valley. And most of them were photographed on the Rensselaer Plateau, I believe.
Everyone, you're welcome to put questions in the chat, or I think we're a small enough group that if you would like to unmute yourself and just ask a question that way, you're welcome to do that too.
Hi. I was wondering, will the elementary school students, because I'm an elementary school student, will they be able to do that photographing project as well?
Absolutely. If you're interested, have your parents contact me and we can work out some details on that. Back here, turn this light on. There we go.
So Adam, I mean, I have heard of this migration, and I've heard of people helping amphibians cross the road. Do I understand you to say that you would post on Facebook where you think is a good place for us to look? Or are we driving around, or?
Yeah, so I mean, anybody can go to those two spots or those spots that I pointed out. Algonquin Beach Road has consistently amphibians migrating across it around this time of year, and then Shaver, Parker, Higgins roads are also pretty consistently have these migrations as well. If you want me to help you find some different spots, maybe closer to you or in a different area, I could do that. Or you could, like I said, there's the DEC Wetland Mapper that's really good for finding wetlands and roads that go through them. So I'll be posting nights that are good to go out. So I just posted today that I think Thursday is supposed to be around 40s in the night, and there was rain that day. So yeah, Thursday might be a good night.
Adam, we've got a couple questions in the chat. Jennifer asks, can you sign up for a site in another county like Saratoga County through the DEC site?
They do not have signups. There are other amphibian projects in the area. I don't know any as far up as Saratoga County. But if you contact the Hudson River Estuary Program, they have some stuff online that I basically have used as well. And they might be able to point you in the right direction as far as contacting people that maybe have already done some surveying out there. But I can also help you too. That Wetland Mapper goes all the way, or it goes all the way up to the Adirondacks, that is. And is there some way for me? I got Elizabeth, live on a busy road, but very active amphibian road crossing in Pikes Pond. Is there a way for me to submit some data as I'm able to periodically? Yeah. So I mean, even if you just went out to survey for a couple seconds, just the dead ones. I mean, that is a good way to know what their mortality is like there, even if you're not out there actually getting all of them on a busy road. So yeah, any data that you can get is good, as long as you can do it safely. And yeah, like if you're on a busy road, then it might be better to try and find a different area. But when you can do it safely, absolutely get out there and help them out, and definitely have partners with you, so you can be looking around and somebody else is watching traffic as well. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna ride a bike around. I ride bikes a lot on quiet roads in Albany County, and I think I'll just watch for the ones that didn't make it and go there next year and count the live ones and help them get across.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to cover a lot of ground and see everything, because from cars, you really kind of move too fast. You have to go real slow and stop a lot. So bike would be an awesome way to do it.
So is it only at night that they're crossing the roads, or is it during the day as well?
Mostly at night, well, almost 100% at night. There are people have reported like wood frogs. So frogs tend to come out earlier. So they'll be out in the evening when there's like dusk area, they'll start crossing. But salamanders, they are almost only found later in the night. So yeah, pretty much only at night.
We do have a few more questions here cropping up in the chat. Larry asks, does the term under the forest floor mean in a tunnel or mean under the leaf litter?
So amphibians, the mole amphibian or mole salamanders and a lot of the amphibians that live in the forest live in the leaf litter. So I guess that's what I meant by the forest floor. They don't live in the tunnels. I mean, I'm sure some may live in some of those tunnels that like Vermont or something like that has made, but mostly they're using those for moving back and forth between their environment or the two environments. So depending on what I was saying, it could be either the forest floor. I meant that they live in the leaf litter is what I'm saying, but they use the tunnels to migrate.
Then Elizabeth says, yes, we get pickerel frogs, which are pretty cool. And Annie asks, how can folks get the data sheets and maybe also maps for the roads you mentioned?
So the data sheets can be found. I'll just share that link in the. There's some resources right there, actually. So the data sheets can be found on the Amphibian Migrations and Road Crossings DEC page. Let me see if I can share this in. Let's see. So there's the website for the DEC, and then on there, you can, if you slide down, they have the data forms for 2013 in the resources for volunteers section. Actually, I can.
So how late at night do you need to go? And also, you kind of broke up when you said you don't actually have to go out there when it's raining, as long as I think you said as long as the roads are wet and their leaf litter is wet. Was there anything else to that?
So amphibians are crossing pretty much between the time of like dusk all the way up till the sun starts to rise again. So basically any time in those in between, you know, sunlight and sunset, or sunrise and sunset, sunset and sunrise, sunset and sunrise. But like I said, they're kind of different distributions for different kinds of amphibians. So if you want to see a lot of frogs, you should go out, you know, earlier in the night or really early in the morning. Or if you're looking for more salamanders, or you want to find more salamanders, a little bit later in the night is going to be better. So between 11 and 4 in the morning, or I'm not saying they could be crossing before 11 as well, but you know, 9, 10, 11 is probably when you're going to start seeing more salamanders than frogs. And yes, it doesn't have to have rained that day, as long as the roads and everything is still wet, as long as their skins can stay wet as they're moving or they're migrating. Yeah, you can find amphibians on the roads.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Adam? Looks like maybe that's it for the questions. Thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, Adam. You taking the time, and we really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm for this project. It's really great. And I guess any final words other than, you know, if people want to connect with you, they can connect with you on the Facebook project, right?
Yeah, I'll enter my email in the chat.
And it looks like we do have one more question from Annie.
I'm raising my
Right
hand.
with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if people are interested in joining up to do this together, you know, that's maybe whether communicating on the Facebook page or getting each other's contact info from Dan or something like that could be a nice way to get started. And then I think also, do we have the capability to provide some safety vests, reflective vests, or is that something that we were talking about, maybe being able to provide that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I know DEC will provide some safety vests, but as I inquired with the town of Sand Lake, and they actually don't. Unfortunately, they won't be providing them, but I will contact the DEC, and they do have some extra ones that they can get out. And if anybody is interested, I guess, in other states where they are doing this in large groups, libraries have some like packets to get together. So we could try and get together some packets and maybe team up with the libraries of the area and kind of figure out a way for them to get that safety material as well.
What are the tiny black frogs that I've seen hundreds of them at a time, and when I first saw them, I thought they were crickets. They're about the size of a cricket, or even a little bit smaller.
What time of year?
In the spring.
Like later spring?
Later spring, yeah.
Probably American toads. Were they up in the water, or were they?
No, they were in wet grass in the middle of the day. Was my first starting to mow.
Gotcha. Yeah, so American toads will emerge from like their little vernal pools, or where sometimes they literally just grow in puddles.
And they're black like a cricket, and very small, like this, you know, not even the size of my thumbnail.
Yeah, it's probably some type of juvenile. I would think toads. That's what I've seen in those large numbers, but most likely toads is what I would guess. If you send me a picture, I can help.
Well, maybe in a couple of months. I've seen them, you know, in previous years, and a couple of times there was hundreds of them. I mean, the ground was just black with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything loves to eat baby toads. So they have to have a lot so they'll survive. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's cool.
Question about where is there a pattern to how they are moving other than between a forested area and a vernal pool? Are they generally going like downhill to the pool? Are they going a mile? Are they going only no more than a couple hundred yards? Do you have that kind of information?
Yeah, so they've been documented as moving, I believe, over half a mile. And they are typically moving down, I believe, downhill. So most of the time, if you look at like a topography map, where you can see there's a nice little hill area that goes down to a vernal pool type area, that's a pretty good spot to be looking as well. But it also, like, when they are moving, we've talked about different times for different species, but around when the temperature is around 40 degrees, and like I said, when it's raining, but both in fall and spring, so you can see them both times, but more in spring. Oh, Carly.
Anyone else have any last questions for Adam before we wrap up?
I won't be going over to Rensselaer to be participating in the counting, but I've enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, big
Hey,
thanks
get
to
out wherever you
Adam.
can. It's not just Rensselaer County.
Big thanks to Adam, and thanks for everyone for joining us tonight. I think we'll call it a wrap there. Thanks again, and please, if you do go out, please stay safe.
Yeah. Be safe.
Dan, will you be?
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, will you be posting the recording?
Yes, Jeff, we should be posting the recording on the RPA YouTube channel sometime within the next few days.
Okay.